cantiknya buat bibirku tak.
B. Oxygen. C. Bicarbonate. D. Stercobilinogen. And the correct answer is C. Bicarbonate. Some of the carbon dioxide is transported dissolved in the plasma. Some carbon dioxide is transported as carba-aminohemoglobin. However, most carbon dioxide is transported as bicarbonate. As blood flows through the tissues, carbon dioxide diffuses into the red blood cells where it is converted into bicarbonate. What part of the lungs are damaged by emphysema? A. Bronchioles. B. Alveolar walls. C. Cell membrane. D. Bronchus. And the correct answer is B. Alveolar walls. Emphysema is a condition that involves damage to the walls of the air sacs, that is, alveoli of the lung. Alveoli are small, thin-walled, very fragile air sacs located in clusters at the end of the bronchial tubes deep inside the lungs. The entry of food into the respiratory tract is prevented by A. Tongue, B. Diaphragm, C. Epiglottis, D. Bronchi. And the correct answer is C. Epiglottis. Epiglottis is a leaf-shaped flap of cartilage located behind the tongue at the top of the larynx or voice box. The main function of the epiglottis is to seal off the windpipe during eating so that the food is not accidentally inhaled. Respiration is controlled by which part of the brain? A. Hypothalamus, B. Cerebrum, C. Medulla oblongata, D. Both A and B. And the correct answer is C. Medulla oblongata. In the following, which organ is not related to respiratory system? A. Larynx, B. Esophagus, C. Pharynx, D. Bronchi. And the correct answer is B. Esophagus. What is the function of concha in the nasal cavity? A. Decreases the surface area, B. Increases the surface area, C. They are non-functional, D. They secrete mucus. And the correct answer is B. They increase the surface area. Nasal concha, also called turbinate or turbinal, any of several thin scroll-shaped bony elements forming the upper chambers of the nasal cavities. They increase the surface area of these cavities, thus providing for rapid warming and humidification of air as it passes to the lungs. A bright red substance formed by the combination of hemoglobin with oxygen is called A. Carboxyhemoglobin, B. Oxyhemoglobin, C. Methoglobin, D. Carbon dioxide. And the correct answer is B. Oxyhemoglobin. The respiratory system is made up of trachea, the lungs, and the A. liver, B. diaphragm, C. pancreas, D. esophagus. And the correct answer is B. diaphragm. The diaphragm is the primary muscle used in respiration. This dome-shaped muscle is located just below the lungs and heart. It contracts continually as you breathe in and out. When you breathe in air, you bring oxygen into your lungs and blow out A. Carbon monoxide, B. Carbon dioxide, C. Hydrogen, D. Nitrogen. And the correct answer is B. Carbon dioxide. When you inhale, your lungs A. Deflate, B. Inflate, C. Remain the same, D. Becomes dysfunctional. And the correct answer is B. Inflate. Name the process of gaseous exchange in the body. A. Lymphatic system, B. Respiration, C. Cardiovascular system, D. Respiratory system. And the correct answer is B. Respiration. Respiration is the process of gaseous exchange in the body, while cardiovascular regulates the blood flow throughout the body. Which of the following is not the function of the respiratory system? A. Regulate blood pH, B. Helps in gaseous exchange, C. Protection against blood loss, D. Contains receptors for the sense of smell. And the correct answer is C. Protection against blood loss. Respiratory system helps in regulation of blood pH and also contain receptors of smell, produces vocal sound and filter inspired air. Protection against blood loss is the function of cardiovascular system by the formation of blood clots. Infection of lungs is called A. Emphysema, B. Asthma, C. Pneumonia, D. Bronchitis. And the correct answer is C. Pneumonia. Pneumonia is an infection of the lungs that may be caused by bacteria, viruses or fungi. The infection causes the lungs air sacs, that is alveoli, to become inflamed and fill up with fluid or pus. This can make it hard for the oxygen you breathe in to get into your bloodstream. The left lung is made up of how many lobes? A. 4, B. 3, C. 2, D. 6. And the correct answer is C. 2. The left lung is smaller than the right lung. The right lung has 3 lobes: the superior lobe, the middle lobe, and inferior lobe. Whereas the left lung has only 2 lobes: the superior lobe and the inferior lobe. How many oxygen molecules bound to hemoglobin to give 100% saturation? A. 4, B. 3, C. 1, D. 2. And the correct answer is A. 4. When 4 oxygen molecules are bound to hemoglobin, it is 100% saturated. When the oxygen molecules are less than 4, it is partially saturated. An instrument for measuring the air capacity of the lungs is called A. Sphygmomanometer, B. Cuff manometer, C. Spirometer, D. Thermometer. And the correct answer is C. Spirometer. Each of the alveolar sac is surrounded by A. Veins, B. Arteries, C. Capillaries, D. Lymphatic nodes. And the correct answer is C. Capillaries. What is the action of pulmonary surfactant in the human body? A. Lowers surface tension at air-liquid interface. B. Increases pulmonary compliance. C. Prevents collapse of the lung at the end of expiration. D. All of the above. And the correct answer is D. All of the above. Which of the following statements is true about trachea in a respiratory system? A. To provide airflow to and from the lungs. B. It lowers the surface tension. C. It increases the surface tension. D. It keeps the surface tension the same. And the correct answer is A. To provide airflow to and from the lungs. What is the purpose of the little hairs inside the nose? A. To fight disease. B. They serve no purpose. C. To keep the dust out of the lungs. D. To tickle the nose and cause sneezes. And the correct answer is C. To keep dust out of the lungs. It is important to keep dust and other impurities out of the lungs. The tiny hairs in the nose trap unwanted particles before they can go too far into the respiratory system. What is the other name for the windpipe? A. Lungs. B. Larynx. C. Trachea. D. Esophagus. And the correct answer is C. Trachea. Trachea is another name for windpipe, which is the tube that connects your larynx to your primary bronchi just before your lungs. You cannot breathe without your trachea. What body structure protects the lungs from outside harm? A. Cartilage. B. Tiny sacs. C. The rib cage. D. The diaphragm. And the correct answer is C. The rib cage. The lungs are delicate and can be bruised and even punctured. The rib cage provides protection for the lungs, but because it is rounded, it allows the lungs to fill up like balloons beneath it. The trachea is divided into two smaller tubes called A. Bronchi, B. Vocal cords, C. Alveoli, D. Veins. And the correct answer is A. Bronchi. The trachea is divided into two smaller tubes called bronchi, one bronchus for each lung. Which type of epithelium lines the trachea and bronchi of the lungs? A. Stratified epithelium. B. Ciliated epithelium. C. Squamous epithelium. D. Both A and C. And the correct answer is B. Ciliated epithelium. Lungs are enclosed by which membrane? A. Myocardial membrane. B. Endometrial membrane. C. Pleural membrane. D. Peritoneal membrane. And the correct answer is